Hi, welcome to another one of my videos. This is going to be different to my normal stuff. I have one of these Chinese mini-lathes. This one is marketed by Katsu. They're all much the same. It's they call it a 7x14. It's been quite well used. I'm not particularly good at cleaning it up, but it's the sort of thing that I would use for sort of like doing work on air guns and that sort of stuff, and just, you know, whenever I need something made, I can turn to this and make it. I have done some modifications to it, mostly to do with getting it cutting accurately. I cleaned the ways up. They were not too bad. This one is better than a lot of the other ones I've seen on the market. It's quite well finished. There's not too much in the way of paint chipping. The most annoying thing with this one is it does have the bolt here in the tailstock to stop it from moving. The lock is in the middle here. I just put a handle on it that I actually pinched from the top of the original tool post. This is my I forget what they call it now, Amaryllis tool post. This one is number 25000. I've got a good selection of quick release tool holders. I almost exclusively use insert tooling. This is like the cheap eBay stuff. It's a 10mm square shank, and I forget the number of the tips, but I've got an awful lot of these. I find them very good. I mostly do light materials, brass, aluminium, not so much steel, although I will be doing a bit more steel. There's a few bits and pieces I need to make which are steel. I also do a lot of Delrin stuff, because a lot of the stuff I put in air rifles uses Delrin. So I find these really good. They last very well, unless you cut some strange concrete material, which I did for one of my videos many years ago. But this particular video, I'm going to be upgrading the bearings in the Headstock. It's something that I've been meaning to do since I've had this, and I've had this a few years now. There's nothing wrong with the bearings in here at the minute. I get a bit of chatter, but not too much. But the bearings I'm going to be replacing for some angular contact bearings. I've also made a slow speed gear set for it, for the motor and the belt. This is about 2 to 1. So you've got, you know, X number of teeth, around 18 teeth I think on the bottom, and around 30 on the top. Where the new gear set I'm going to be replacing, I should say belt pulley set really, this is 32 on the top and 12 on the bottom, so it's about 3 to 1 ratio, which is quite nice. And I'm using a proper belt, which is an XL belt, which is this one here, XL 130. This is a pretty standard belt profile, so it is absolutely perfect because it means I can get replacement belts nice and easily, whereas the factory belt is some weird non-profile. It's a bit of a custom made thing, so it's very difficult to get replacement belts, and when you do find them, they're about £8 or £9 for a belt, which is ridiculous considering the more common belt is about £3. So that's what I've done. I've got the correct gears. I've had to machine them to make them fit in this, but I will show you that in a second. The other thing I've got is I've got a full set of plastic change gears, got a full set of metal change gears, and the metal 2-speed gear selector, which is inside the headstock. This is the one that has the 2-speed gearbox on it, with the lever that's at the back of the lathe where you don't expect a lever to be. I have often wondered whether it's possible to extend it over this way and have it at the top, which would make much more sense, but that's a project for another day. So here we have the machined pulley set that I've made for this particular lathe. This is from a cheap Chinese seller. I forget how much it was, only a couple of pounds I think. It had guides on the edges, whereas it's completely unnecessary on this pulley because it's got it on the motor. You don't need 2 sets of guides, it just causes more drag. And in fact it actually would stop this one from going on because the spindle is only about 11mm sticking out of the lathe, so this is about 14 when it's got the guides on. So you have to machine the guides off. They're made of steel, but they come off fairly easy. I've also reduced this in width. It was about 11mm and I've reduced it down to around 10, so that it actually is in pretty much alignment with the belt. It's a fraction wider than the belt, but that is absolutely fine for this job because it doesn't need to be any wider than the belt. I've also had to file in a keyway. It comes without a keyway. It comes with a grub screw hole, but I just figured the keyway would be the best thing to do, so I've kept the keyway. The motor one is much the same deal. I've left the guides on, but again, this is designed to be held in place with grub screws. I have filed a keyway. This is an M8, 8mm across, which is the diameter of my motor. These Chinese mini lathes seem to have anywhere from 6 to 10mm. Mine happens to be an 8, which is a size. It's already pre-reamed. It does fit the motor. I've already tried it. So basically I've trial fitted all this already, so I know it fits my lathe. I actually machined these specifically to fit this particular lathe. The belt I've already shown is, this one is an XL 130. Let's get it around the right way. Nice and cheap, nice and easy to get. I've actually got another belt as well, which is an XL 120. The belt, they're just a slight difference in length. One's 13 inches and one's 12 inches. I got the choice of two because it would depend on the exact tension that I need on my between the distance between the pulley centres. When I measured it, I couldn't remember whether I measured it for a 120 or a 130, so I thought they were so cheap I'll just order both anyway, and then I'll just continue using whichever one I was going to use. Right, sticking with gears and pulleys and things, when I first got the lathe a few years ago, I managed to get hold of a complete steel set of change gears. They're not thread cutting gears, they're basically power feed gears. They're too slow for, or they would produce a very fine thread, which is kind of pointless. So these are literally the slow running gears for power feed. Because on these Chinese mini lathes it uses the screw cutting thread as the power feed drive as well. You just select a very low ratio, which is the 80 tooth gears. I also have the change gears. I've got those in steel as well. My lathe will have nylon or Delrin or whatever they are, probably Delrin I expect, but these are a bit more beefy. They're less likely to wear, so they'll enable the gear set to take a bit more torque. Hopefully not so much torque it bends something should it lock up. I'm guessing the belt would slip. But the idea of these is they're basically a fit and forget item. So that was the reason. They actually came in the gear set, so I wasn't going to refuse them. They came in it, and it wasn't that expensive to get the gear set along with the lathe. As this gear set came with the change gear set, I thought, well, while I've got stripping the headstock down, I might as well install these at the same time. Right, these are the headstock bearings that I've got. They're called angular contact bearings. These are like cheap Amazon jobs, but the way these would go is inside. They're a bit like a tapered roller bearing, so the larger flange would go on the inside, and the one with a large steel disc goes on the outside, so the two bearings would face each other effectively like that, and that. So the idea being that the tapers, because they're a taper inside here, will be facing each other, so you can adjust the key, the nut which would normally go on the back here, to give you the correct preload, so not causing it too much drag, but to eliminate any kind of like axial or radial movement in the bearing. So those will be going in. I'll do this bit as a time lapse because it's only disassembly. I've got a 4-jaw chuck for this lathe, which I use on occasion, not very often, but it has a bigger capacity than the 3-jaw. And I've also got a collet chuck, which I've never used, simply because the headstock bearings aren't really accurate enough to make use of a collet. This is the worst part about these lathes, is they're a bit of a fiddle to get the chuck off. It's only 3 bolts, but obviously they've got to be nipped up fairly tight, otherwise they fall off. And I do find using the key as an anchor is the easiest thing to do to take these apart. When I first got this, I did clean the chuck up. It was in a, well, you could describe a bit of a mess. The inside, it was all gritty and horrible, and the inside of the chuck was full of basically swarf and grinding grit and quite a well made one. It's better made than a lot of the ones I've seen. It even has proper earth tags, which is unusual, and the paint has been stripped where the earth tag goes, again, which is unusual for this sort of thing. This is not the first time I've had this apart. I've never had a problem with it, but of course when I first got it I did take it to pieces and clean it. I always reckon that these cheap Chinese lathes are more of an assembled kit that you have to take to pieces and clean before reassembling. Right, get the belt off. There's the old belt. It's a strange, unusual size. It says 150 by 70, but nobody has ever found the actual size. It seems to be a kind of a metric belt, but it's a bit of a weird one. Right, now the headstock comes off by 2 bolts under here and then 2 more around the back. Right, there's the headstock off. It's quite a simple device really. It's just a chunk of cast iron with some plastic gears in it. Now when I first got this, the only issue I had with it not working properly was this set screw here had come slightly loose, so that it wasn't always engaging the gears smoothly. But as far as gear form is concerned, there are no chipped teeth or anything. It's all running really well. It's nice and smooth. So it's actually one of the better ones I've seen. So this one is sold or marketed by Katsu, but they're all much of a muchness. But the quality seems to vary from supplier to supplier. The price varies quite a bit as well. I think I paid around £420 for this for 2 years ago, for my 50th birthday. So I think for £420 compared to what they're selling for today, it was quite reasonable. I spent another 70 on the improved bearings and the metal gear set as well. So basically under 500 for everything. I think and I got the chuck as well, but that was another 30 I think for the chuck. So this is going to be where I'm going to draw this video to a close. I've got it apart. The next video I will be doing the tear down of this, the installing of the new bearings and gears, and potentially reassembly depending on how time goes. But up to this point in time, thanks for watching.